What's up, guys? My name is Tim. For those that don't know me, I am one of the 10th grade guy leaders. Shout out to my boy Alden, best co out there. Anyway, just wanted to share with you guys a quick Devo. It's really cool what I think the crew has been doing, and also just reaching out to other people who are involved in the church, some students, some other leaders. Really a neat opportunity for all of us to kind of share some of the things that God's been laying on our heart during quarantine. Definitely been an interesting time. One of the things that stood out to me when Justin asked me to do this is just kind of what were some of the key things that were coming to my mind, and what would maybe be something that would resonate with me as a high school J-High, dealing with these very interesting times, not something that I dealt with whenever I was in high school. One of the things, though, that came to my mind, though, was this idea of contentment. I think it transcends just time of quarantine, but is definitely applicable for a time of quarantine. And me and my guys, we've been reading through a couple of books of the Bible, and we were in Philippians a couple weeks ago, and Paul talks about that in Philippians 4:11 through 13, so I wanted to read that to you guys. And he says, "I'm not saying this because I'm in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know that what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength." So definitely in Philippians 4:13, we know that one. That comes up quite a bit. But that verse is talking about contentment. And so what we know is our God, he promises in the Old Testament he'll never leave us nor forsake us. And the God of the Old Testament is, the same God that we worship today. I think that's what, is neat about what we're doing on Wednesday nights, reading through, Genesis and learning about these people from thousands of years ago, but are very applicable to today because they interacted with the same God that we interact with today. I was getting to talk about that with some of my crew on Wednesday. God is unchanging, and so we know that truth. And so, just to talk a little bit about that, it's kind of how are we going to be content, recognizing that God is always looking out for us. He hasn't forsaken us. I know, going into over a month of being in quarantine, it's something that we kind of have two options. We can either be really utilizing this time or just trying to be like, well, let's just get through one day at a time and get life back to normal, where I can get back to, all the things that I enjoy doing. Some people really like quarantine, some don't. But, what are we doing with contentment? Are we being content in this situation? And are we content overall? Contentment's something that is very elusive because, I feel like, especially in high school, it's easy to be wanting kind of the next thing. You want to be in that relationship. You want to be asked to, prom with whoever. You want to make this team. You want to, get to be an upperclassman, get to high school. It's always about like, oh, well, once I have that, then I'll have it made. I'll be content. And so a lot of times, though, we don't think about where contentment's rooted. And contentment is really rooted in our identity. What is our identity in? If you think about what we often have the excuse of saying, oh, I'll be content if I have this or have that, we're the root of that. And, something that always has struck me is that when we're the root of our contentment, we're never content. We're told that, in Philippians, also in 2 Timothy, and a variety of other places, that our citizenship is in heaven. And if our citizenship as Christians is in heaven, then our identity should be rooted in that. When you ask who someone is, a defining characteristic is where are they from, where are they going? And so I encourage you guys to think about that. Where is our identity? And what are we doing about that in this time of quarantine as far as incorporating identity into contentment? How are you going about your kind of daily tasks, whether that's school, dealing with family, interacting with friends in a completely different way? And are we taking that opportunity to truly sit back and think, okay, what is God doing this time, and how am I maybe not being content? How am I wanting to rush back into life how it was? And I would say and encourage you guys to dive into this idea that Paul had a rough go at it, and the fact that somebody like that could sit there and say, I am content, and we read throughout the scriptures with his letters that, he was pretty genuine with that. And so it's something that I encourage you guys to be proactive about contentment and what that looks like for your life. Maybe this is a great time to take a step back where day-to-day life is so busy that you were getting caught up in who you were hanging out with, what group of friends you wanted to be involved in, what's your sports team, who knows? But maybe it's an opportunity to take a step back and think, that was where I was wrapping up my identity. That was where I was thinking I was going to find that contentment. And I encourage you guys to go back to, the scriptures about where we find contentment, where we find meaning, and ultimately where we find our identity. Love hanging out with you guys. Hope everybody's hanging in there, and just praying for you guys this week.